podcast for the Durham County Sheriff's Office. I'm Clarence Birkhead, your Durham County Sheriff. Star Talk is the place to inform you about the many things happening here at the Sheriff's Office. This edition is critically important as we will focus on officer wellness. And this topic is also timely because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is a chance to take a deep dive and let you know what we're doing here to help our deputies achieve good health, work-life balance. It goes without saying, what we do here at the Sheriff's Office takes a toll on the human psyche of every one of us, be it staff working as deputies patrolling the street or those detention officers assigned to the Durham County Detention Center. It has been said that us in law enforcement, we often put in challenging positions to handle many issues out in society that most folks could not handle. Things like domestic abuse, arriving at crime scenes where fatal incidents have occurred, tragic shootings, and so forth. Joining me is Lieutenant Anthony Sharp, our Officer Wellness Coordinator. Lieutenant Sharp, welcome to Star Talk.
Hi, Sheriff. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We've been trying to put this podcast together for quite a while, and so I'm glad my schedule finally worked out to where we could join each other. Happy that you're here with us. I know you're going to be on duty later tonight, so we'll try to keep this as succinct, as short as possible. But before we get started, I'd like for you to tell our listeners a little bit about you personally, and then a little bit about your role as a lieutenant here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office.
Well, absolutely. Once again, thanks again for having me on. My name is Anthony Sharp. I'm a lieutenant here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office. I just hit my 14-year mark here at the Sheriff's Office, so I'm very excited about that. I'm 37 years old, originally born and raised in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, so I'm new to the area. Also a graduate from the illustrious North Carolina Central University, where I majored in a bachelor's in science and criminal justice, and then started my career in law enforcement. Been here lieutenant for a little little over 3.5 years as lieutenant on patrol. I'm also a team leader on our SWAT team here as well. I'm a firearms instructor, a PT instructor, a rapid deployment instructor, and I also teach fair and impartial wellness, as well as being an officer wellness coordinator here for the agency.
Wow, that's a impressive resume. You're local. We'll certainly want to give NCCU a shout out, and for all our Eagles out there listening, we have one of your very own right here serving at the Durham County Sheriff's Office and serving this community proudly day in and day out. I understand you're also a family man. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Pam, of 13 years, and we have 3 little girls, Emery, who's 11, Blake, who is 8, and Tatum, who is 4 years old.
So your job never ends.
Never ends.
So you're policing, for lack of a better term, at work and at home with
yes, sir.
3 growing girls. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I mentioned in the intro that you are our wellness coordinator. Tell us what that role entails for you and how it came about.
So as the officer wellness coordinator here, what that entails is my responsibility is bringing a change of culture, wellness to our agency, not only for our law enforcement officers, our detention officers, but as well as our civilian staff. So it's about embodying a whole culture of wellness. That includes creating events that we do once a month, bringing people in to do, financial wellness, financial literacy. We talk a lot about mental health. We've had partners, North Carolina Responders to Sensitive Initiative and NC Ray and NC Leap come over, which I'm also a partner with them as well on peer support. So it's about just bringing overall whole and wellness to the agency and figuring out how we can just stay as one and be healthy together.
Yeah, so wellness is inclusive. You mentioned financial wellness, financial literacy. We're talking about mindfulness, physical fitness. We really want to develop a program here at the Sheriff's Office that our deputies and our civilian staff can pretty much have whatever they need to be successful in life and keep them healthy so they can be focused and serve the community, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's what we're striving for. I think it's been 2 years. You and I went out to Anaheim, California, as part of the IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police Wellness Initiative. We were invited along with a couple of researchers. And while we were there, we presenting on the panel, and I know you had an opportunity to connect with other agencies across the country. What were some of the takeaways from that experience?
Beautiful experience. Anaheim was a beautiful place and had wonderful food as well. So I think the biggest takeaways there was that this wasn't really new to a lot of agencies. A lot of agencies have been doing it for a while. And some of the biggest takeaways were that peer support, that opportunity where each other were kind of helping each other along the way, trying to build health and resilience. I mean, there was a ton of tools and opportunities to wellness dogs, to what people were doing. They had their own wellness teams where there were officers and civilian on staff to kind of help bring people in and foster a culture of wellness. What we also saw, I thought was very important, is that agencies across the world are now bringing on clinically licensed physicians to come be a part of the staff, which I thought was very monumental to health and wellness, to have somebody on staff to serve 24/7.
Yeah, no, I remember being in Anaheim, connecting with some of those folks and listening to some of those other presentations and about the wellness dogs being inside the facility or inside the agency, clinicians being hired on staff, so deputies or police officers or whomever did not have to go anywhere. So it was all brought in-house, and that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal for us here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office. I'm probably going to put that in my budget request for next year, and hopefully the commissioners will fund
Yes, sir.
that initiative, because we know that it is critically important that we have a balance and that we take care of the men and women of the Durham County Sheriff's Office. You know, we also know that most of our service calls that we respond to are nonviolent in nature, but we prioritize the special training that you mentioned for all of our deputies and all of our staff, training like de-escalation, crisis intervention, or CIT. So we're not just out making arrests and breaking up fights and things of that nature. We equip our deputies with other skill sets, if you will. Let's talk a little bit about how critically important that training is and how it connects with wellness when you get that training in crisis intervention or de-escalation or bias-based policing.
Yes, sir. I think it's very crucial. CIT, or crisis intervention training, is something that we really harp on here at the Sheriff's Office. Every deputy that comes through here has a goal. If they don't get it in the academy, that at some point along their career, they'll get certified in CIT. And I've been a part of that program for a long time. It not only teaches us how to deal with our community and people that may be dealing with mental illness in the community, but it also teaches officers wellness and to be able to recognize those symptoms and traits of somebody being in crisis, so that we can also notice it in the community members, but we can also notice it in our partners here at the office as well.
You know, I think that's critically important, that our deputies and our detention officers have the tools so they can recognize that someone is dealing with a mental health issue or they are in crisis, and then having the training and knowledge of resources that they can share with that individual, but how to talk to that individual to de-escalate, to bring them or them down to a level where we can be productive and have a positive interaction versus a negative interaction. And that is critically important, as you know, in this day and time when law enforcement is not really seen as a caregiver.
Yes, sir.
But we are.
We are. And then we wear so many hats. I think law enforcement is such a multifaceted approach to how we do things. We have a lot of tools on our belt, a lot of training that we go through in defensive tactics and how to shoot and skills of that nature. But it's also critically important that we match those skills and add different tools to de-escalate and learn how to deal with the public because we wear so many hats.
And that's a very good point you just made. We have all these tools, and we train on how to drive, defensive driving, and shooting, of course. But let's train the mind on how we can better take care of ourselves and also how we can better serve the public. And I've been in this business a very long time. I'm not going to tell you how long, but a long time. But we know this is a stressful job. For you as our wellness coordinator, a family man, someone who grew up in Chapel Hill, I'm not going to hold that against you. How do you manage stress effectively, and how do you balance work and your home life?
Ooh, I love that work balance. I think you mentioned both. I think that's what's important. It's very difficult. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it isn't. A lot of times you've been trained or heard in the academy that you leave home at home and you leave work at work. But as men and women who do this line of work, it's impossible for us to do that. I think the biggest thing for me, I think the last 2 years is what helped me, is that I've seen a therapist. So for the last 2 years, I've been seeing a therapist quite often. I visit twice a week. And we just kind of talk through our problems. That's helped me to have someone that is trained and is clinically, culturally competent to kind of listen to those issues and work out my emotions and how I deal with stress and how I deal with depression and what I deal with those issues that come up. It's just really talking and asking for help and not being afraid to make yourself vulnerable to what you really need.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And so I'm sure in those sessions you talk out some of the issues or some of the things that you've been dealing with, and you may get feedback as to how you could handle the situation maybe differently. And I'm sure you also get some skills on how do you cope with those issues, whether it's stress or stress at home, stress at work. How do you manage that and sort of compartmentalize it?
So I think the biggest thing is kind of setting those boundaries for yourself and planning and coordinate it. Because this job, and Sheriff, you've been doing it for a long time, you know how important it is, and this job will control you if you allow it. There's so much going on, so much to be done. The work never ends, and you're constantly pulled between your shifts and doing extracurricular activity or maybe some mandatory overtime to fit the needs of the sheriff's office or your particular agency. But I think it's important for you to set those boundaries and plan and coordinate time for yourself and time for your family, whether you're a married person and you like to have a date night with your significant other. If your daughter's like mine who play softball and we're going every weekend to make sure I'm there if I need to take time to be there and just be present. But you have to set those skills for yourself. And ultimately, overall wellness, it's important for you to take time to exercise and get outside and to know when you need a break and when you need to reset. I think is critically important, being aware of that.
Yeah, and we have a gym here on site at the sheriff's office where deputies, all of our staff has access to that, so that's critically important. You mentioned something a moment ago I want to go back to, peer support. How important is it to identify with a peer, someone you can pick up the phone and maybe call when things are kind of out of sorts? How important is peer support in this mindfulness or this wellness journey that we're taking here at the sheriff's office?
I think it's really important to establish peers who are also culturally competent. You hear me say that word a lot. It means that they're trained and they understand the process of what peer support looks like. But I think it's important, especially myself being a leader here, having people that I mentor, younger or older, and that I lead under my tutelage. It's important for me to be a peer and a mentor to be able to recognize those skills, but to also train them to be peers and help each other out as well. And you don't have to have any rank or affiliation to be a peer. It's just you have to be a trusted mentor or a trusted person that's willing to listen and to provide feedback. And just to be trustworthy is all you need. But it's very important because no one trusts us like we trust ourselves, right? And a lot of times, so many law enforcement officers and first responders feel comfortable talking to another first responder. So having someone who understands that line of work and understanding what you're feeling and what you're going through is important, that we have people in place to support one another. We're doing a great job with it here as well.
Yeah, that's great. Even though you mentioned having clinical staff available, perhaps in the future having clinical staff on site, on staff with us here at the sheriff's office, but it's also critical that we talk to one another and we develop those internal relationships, peer to peer, as you just mentioned. But to bring it full circle, sometimes you can't talk to the peer, so you want to talk to a clinician or your pastor or your rabbi or whomever you want to confide in or you feel comfortable with. So we got to make all of those resources available. All right, I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to push you a little bit here on a personal note. I know shortly after I became sheriff here in Durham County, you were involved in a shooting incident. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, I'd like for you to talk to us about that and how it impacted you personally and professionally and how it led you to this wellness journey that we're now on.
Yes, sir. I'll never forget that date, November 14th of 2020. I believe you were 2 years here in office when that took place, and I can finally talk about it because the case has been closed and both suspects or defendants have been in prison and sentenced, so I can finally talk about it. Very terrible day. I was just off duty and got ambushed by 2 local gang members here in Durham County, and I was shot in my car and assaulted. I never thought that it would happen to me here. You hear the stories and you go through all the training, but when it's you being involved in that, it really hits home. And at that time, we had 2 daughters, and they were very young, but it was very vulnerable. I was very vulnerable in that point, and I felt violated because it happened so close to my home. And it took a lot for me to turn from that and to learn from that. I had a lot of post-traumatic stress that I was dealing with through that, and being open to the community, being vulnerable, not know if my name was going to be out there. The guys had not been caught right after that, so shortly after, it was a lot of stress. But one thing I can say about that is when I knew that we were doing it right is that, I'm not sure if you remember this, and I'm pretty sure you do, but you told me when you visited me in the hospital that you would take care of me and my family. And that night, there was a car in front of my house every night that followed us to school every day. There was a car that was at my in-laws' house every night to make sure that we were safe. And so while I was vulnerable in that moment and my head was spinning and trying to wrap my head around what was going on, I felt very safe in the fact that the sheriff's office had promised me support and safety, which made my family feel good. And it made me feel better about where I was and learning and growing from this opportunity. And so not only did I have to take time to heal from the physical wounds, but the mental wounds took toll as well. So I had to get out and seek some therapy. I was able to go to PCIS, or Post-Critical Incident Seminar, which NC LEAP, North Carolina Law Enforcement Assistance Program, puts on twice a year to do that. And it took some time to kind of talk through those emotions and those feelings and feel comfortable coming back to work and being healthy and ready to do it again. But that situation propelled me, and I used it as a strength. I think that a lot of times that when we go through things, we think that it's for us, but that situation wasn't for me. It was so that I could be in a position here now to help other young people that may experience that, how to get out of it.
Oh, so true, so true. We look at situations, and you're right. Why is this happening to me? Well, yes, you were the victim. It happened to you, but the blessing or the lesson is for someone else.
Yes, sir. And
we're all growing from that. Lieutenant Sharp, we're so glad you're here with us today on Star Talk. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about our wellness program here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office with Lieutenant Anthony Sharp, our wellness coordinator. We'll be right back.
I came to the Durham County Sheriff's Office in search of employment, and I wound up finding a career and a calling.
There's so many different divisions in the sheriff's office.
Welcome to the Durham County Detention Facility.
There's always something new and something different in this type of field here. You never know what to expect each day.
Come on and experience it for yourself before you make your final judgment. This could be your career.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Star Talk, a podcast from the Durham County Sheriff's Office.
We need to do something. This is our next generation of future doctors and lawyers and nurses and police officers.
I hope you understand that the Durham County Sheriff's Office and I, as your sheriff, are committed to reaching our youth.
Animal control is underneath the sheriff's office, which I had no idea. I'm sure many in the community have no idea.
We detect and investigate and enforce violations of animal ordinances, enforce state laws concerning domesticated animals. We investigate animal bites.
The folks who work on the street and serve in our communities from Bahama, Rougemont, Southwest Durham are ambassadors of the good work that we're doing serving the residents here in Durham County.
We have a $6,000 sign-on bonus, so I'm definitely not going to leave that out, right? And then some of our incentive pay for our base salaries, you're looking at, if you meet one of the extra criteria, 2.5%, 5%, 7%, up to 10% potentially.
Welcome back to Star Talk. I'm your host, Durham County Sheriff Clarence Birkhead, and today we are discussing officer wellness with Lieutenant Anthony Sharp. Lieutenant Sharp, I know you touched on this in our first segment about coping skills and managing the stress. But you also mentioned how to recognize that one of our colleagues or our staff is dealing with something. Let's talk a little bit about that. And when you see that, what steps do you take to help that individual or guide that individual, if you will?
Okay, well, I'm glad you mentioned that. You talked about mindfulness in that last segment as well, which is really being aware of yourself. So I think, first of all, you have to be aware of yourself and your emotions, and when you're out of check, to be able to recognize it in someone else. But some of the signs and symptoms that we want to recognize in an employee that they may not have great coping skills or be dealing with some stress, I think first is the outside appearance. If they're normally clean shaven and taking care of themselves, and they're now all of a sudden they're not taking care of themselves, their uniform, its dress is not as sharp. Normally they're on time and they're being late. That's something you want to know. Or maybe they're normally outgoing and outspoken and normally involved, and now they're isolating themselves a little bit more, and they're not showing up the way that they should. They're not. You get an officer that used to be very proactive in the community, and now he's sitting in places for longer than he normally would. I think that's the skills. I think you have to be able to pick up on that, and when you see it, to be able to address it. Because if you allow it to go on and not address it, it could turn over and spoil over into something that it could be very chaotic for that person.
Yeah. So when you recognize those subtle changes in behavior or appearance, that's normally a signal that something is just a little bit off. It could be a minor thing, or it could be a significant issue, but nonetheless, we need to be able to recognize it and talk with that peer and say, hey, what's going on? Check in with them and see if they'll open up to you. That's critically important.
And I think you made a great point. I think it's important to recognize it, but it's also brave for you to step out and be able to challenge and say something about it. So many people, they see officers or their employees kind of spiraling, and they're too afraid to say something. And by the time we say something, it's actually too late. Right. So the moment you see it, don't be afraid to reach out there, put a hand on the shoulder, and ask if the person's doing okay and what's going on, and then how you can help them.
And you never know how far that simple check-in will go.
Yes.
Yeah. I know here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office, certainly working with Durham County government, we have great benefits. One of those benefits is the Employee Assistance Program, or EAP. Let's talk about that and how EAP fits into our wellness program here at the Sheriff's Office.
Well, I think, first of all, Durham County is doing a phenomenal job with wellness. I hear lately I've been a part of a lot of conferences and things and trainings that they put on here, which is great. A lot of people don't know about it, but they do a lot for us and their employees here. So the EAP program is actually really good. It's a good place to start, because it's something that's in-house. It's something that services all of Durham County employees. They do a lot of stuff with wellness. They do a lot of stuff with financial leadership. They do a lot of stuff with whole leadership and physical health. They actually have a challenge coming up here that's, you put together a fitness team and you compete amongst people within the Durham County employee system. And I think it's great. But I think you have to be willing to know that it's out there and know that it's available for you and that it's easily accessible. I think for most people, they don't know what exists out there. And because they don't know that it exists, they're too afraid to kind of reach out and do it. And when you make those things available to you, like the EAP program, it has to be accessible, and it has to be more efficient for you to do it. Because if you got to go through and you got to fill out tons of forms, and you're waiting on somebody to reach out to you, then it's not as efficient, and people kind of shy away from it. But we do offer it here.
Right. It's a great program. I've heard employees say it's not for us being law enforcement. It's so another reason that I wanted to bring our wellness program in-house. EAP is great, and we encourage our employees to seek assistance through the EAP program. But we're also taking that EAP model and building our program here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office. And I know we've talked about Anaheim, California. We've talked about IACP. We've talked about LEDA. There are a number of models out there. Help our listeners understand that we're building something not from scratch, but taking bits and pieces of what we've seen and what you've seen and experienced to build our program. And ultimately, we want a program that says Durham County Sheriff's Office Wellness Program. It's our program. Talk about how we're building that model.
So I always was told that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If it's out there and exists, and to borrow those tools and share them and to create your own. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you wanted to create something in-house for us, which is great. The EAP program is a great way to start. and it's good for the family, but we needed something more centralized for our people here at the sheriff's office that was in-house. So more than likely, when you start building these programs, the wellness programs that encompass so much, whether it be financial literacy, whether it be health and wellness, whether it be women's health, chiropractic health, when you take that multifaceted approach to attack things at different angles, you're kind of giving the dose of the medicine one at a time and kind of diagnosing people as they come through the doors exactly what they need. It's not just one whole wellness where people come here and it's just about mental health. We want to open up the doors and to be able to service everyone in their each own capacity, because people deal with things at different paces. And some people are more resilient than others. Some people aren't as resilient, and we have to be able to process them one at a time and give them the help that they need in-house.
Absolutely. It's not one size fits all.
Yes.
This thing is individualized. It's unique. It's unique to law enforcement. Again, we're not the first law enforcement agency in the country to do this. I talk to my colleagues at the chief level, the sheriff level all the time, and all of them are paying more attention to officer wellness than we have ever. In my 41 years, I'll go ahead and throw it out there. In my 41 years of law enforcement, we've never paid this much attention to officer wellness. I think it was our own ignorance that we didn't. Back in the day, it'd be like, okay, suck it up. You had a bad day at home, leave that mess at home. Let's go to work. You got a job to do. Or, okay, so something out here happened. It was a tragedy. Suck it up and get back to work. That's not healthy. We know now that's not healthy. You mentioned PTSD earlier. So we want to head it off at the pass if we want to and develop these skill sets and recognize that the men and women in law enforcement, first responders, they see things that they cannot unsee. It has an impact on them, whether consciously or subconsciously, and we want to help them unpack that. That's what this whole journey of wellness is about. Would you agree?
I agree 100%. And Sheriff, if I didn't take this opportunity to give you your flowers now, it may never happen. I think you said something critically important, and I think what most people need to hear is that the sheriff of Durham County is spearheading wellness, right? We know that none of this works if you don't believe in the concept. You don't believe in wellness. And so for you as the sheriff, our leader, to believe in wellness and to preach it sets the standard for how we want to do things here in Durham County. So agencies across the board, if you're looking to start a wellness program, I think it's monumental that your leaders are embodying this concept of wellness up front, and they're spearheading it themselves and believing it themselves before they try to put it on anyone else. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Sharp. And as I mentioned at the outset, you're the coordinator. So we are in this together. And I think in order for us to be successful in anything we do, we need to do it together. And so I'm honored to have you leading this effort. You mentioned service dogs earlier, or canines in the facility, clinicians on staff. What would be next for the Durham County Sheriff's Office wellness program? Would it be a canine? You know how I've kind of shunned away from that conversation from time to time, but let's talk about what is next. What would be if we come back and do this podcast a year from now? What would we want to say we now offer?
When we come back a year from now, I'd like to say that we have an established team, an actual team, some folks that we've identified who can lead this team. And not only need to be first responders, they need to be civilians on staff and people from the detention facility. In every facet that we offer here needs to be someone present to have a representative to do that. But I think before we bring in any type of canines and love dogs, I think we need to bring in human people who understand wellness. So I think the first mark would be bringing on a culturally competent physician in-house that can maybe visit throughout the week, or have us slided days throughout the month where they come and they do ride-alongs and they just sit and have a conversation with people, introduce them, let them understand that's a part of the culture, because it's going to be new for people to see someone out-house coming in-house to service us. So I think we bring a human element to wellness first, and then that will spread. So identifying that team and then bringing someone on staff that can help us do things the way we want to do it here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office.
Two great suggestions. Getting more of us involved, and then bringing in that professional clinician element. and just continue to build. I'm 100% behind that. You heard it here. We're going to support this effort and continue to grow what we're doing here at the Durham County Sheriff's Office, because we're doing great things. We've got wonderful training. We talked about it. I'm really proud to say that we've got 80% of our sworn force is certified in crisis intervention training. You mentioned things like de-escalation earlier. There are other courses out there, verbal judo. And so, I push training and will continue to do so. We know that there's wellness conferences out there. There's one coming up next week, as a matter of fact, that I'll be attending here in the state of North Carolina. So we want to continue to learn ourselves so we can bring these skill sets and these services in-house for our men and women across the board, civilian, detention, certainly law enforcement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Lieutenant Sharp, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I really appreciate you joining us on this episode of Star Talk, where we've talked about officer wellness. Applaud you for stepping up when we put this together, and you immediately said, I want to be part of this. And your experience and the tragedy that you went through that has turned into a blessing. I use the term tragedy because being shot is a tragedy, but you survived, and through no small feat of yourself, and certainly the grace of God and your family helping you get to this point. And now you can be an ambassador for wellness and using those events to help shape your message that others will benefit from. So as we wrap up this, we'll give you the final word, Lieutenant Sharp, on wellness, officer wellness.
Well, I think the way to wrap that up, Sheriff, and first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm blessed to have an opportunity and a platform to do so. So I think the biggest thing, and how I'll wrap it up, is the motto: take care of yourself, love yourself, and take care of others.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it right here from Lieutenant Anthony Sharp, the wellness coordinator for the Durham County Sheriff's Office. I always want to thank you all for tuning in and listening. This is the Durham County Sheriff's Office. We are here to help you, and I say this often. Everything we do at the Durham County Sheriff's Office is designed to save lives. That's lives out in the community and certainly lives here within the ranks. You can always call us at 919-560-0900, or you can certainly call 911 and ask for the Durham County Sheriff's Office. Until next time, this is your Durham County Sheriff, Clarence Birkhead, and we look forward to the next edition of Star Talk.